Hi folks, how you doing? On the fourth round of the Grand Slam Masters in Bilbao, Spain, we saw another interesting game between Anand with white pieces and Vallejo as black, and an instructive battle, I think. Sometimes chess can be very difficult and complex, but in this game we're gonna see simple and effective moves, really instructive and pleasant to watch. Anand was white, as I said, and this time he plays 1 d4. After d5, c4, Paco Vallejo decides to take the pawn. Really kind of a surprise because although Vallejo has a broad opening repertoire, the Queen's Gambit accepted isn't very trendy at the top level nowadays. Anand answers with the most critical response probably and the most challenging one, e4, taking all the center. Okay, the knight f3 here would be the classical and probably the safer approach, the one who Botvinnik or liked a lot. But e4 I like, and here black has a choice. He can play knight f6, e5, c5 are options here. But Paco tries knight c6, trying to probably surprise Anand, because this is not that much common. Okay, it's a move, it's a possible move. You're putting pressure on d4 immediately. But his drawback is that in these structures, black normally wants his c pawn free to play c5, challenge white's pawn center immediately with pawns. So that's an obvious drawback to this knight c6 move, but still, it's playable, I guess. Now the pawn on d4 must be defended, so knight f3 makes sense. Bishop to g4, a pin on the knight, and the pressure on g4 is already too much, so the theoretical move here and the most natural is to play d5, releasing pressure on the d pawn. Now it's not on d4 anymore. Knight to e5, pressure on f3, knight and bishop attacking. There's a pin, of course. But here development is very important, so Anand doesn't care about doubled pawns in case black takes on f3. He plays bishop to f4, inviting black to take on f3 with the knight. This is something that Vallejo doesn't play, but in case he did, take on f3, g takes. Now the bishop must move to h5, for instance. White is much better, I think. He's going to take c4 immediately back. His pawns are very good looking here from f3 to d5. The open g file could benefit him, and the doubled pawns on the f file are definitely not that a great disadvantage for white, in my opinion. So white has a huge lead here after bishop takes and rook g1, if possible. Well, white would have a huge lead in development, good pawns in the center, so this would be better for white, I think. Probably that's why Vallejo just goes back with the knight to g6, attacking the bishop. The bishop retreats. It's done. He's done its job. Bishop to e3. And now e5, still quite a theoretical position, this one, lots of GM games. Black at least puts a pawn in the center on e5. Now some normal and very natural looking developing moves, easy to understand. Bishop takes on c4. Knight to f6 attacks e4, so the most natural way of defending it. Developing a piece, knight to c3. And a6 here, probably trying to go b5. Avoiding white pieces from going to b5 and making any trouble there. So Anand kind of anticipates that b5 move and puts the bishop on e2. I mean, the bishop on c4 isn't doing that much of a great job, so bishop to e2. No more pin against the queen. Useful move. Bishop to d6. Now the knight, interesting to note, isn't doing anything else in this f3 square. It's not pinned anymore, it can move. It's not e5 is overprotected, d5 is not a square available for him, so makes sense to play knight d2, always relocating pieces. Now he's overprotecting e4, which could be potentially his weakest point of the board, and his f-pawn is free to move, and on the other hand he's offering an exchange of pieces here, developing the queen in case bishop takes, queen takes, as we're gonna see. So Very instructive moves here by Anand. Now both players castle, short castle, and out of the opening we have a very comfortable position for white, I think, with space, good pieces, coordination, not obvious, weaknesses. Meanwhile, black isn't standing bad, but lacks a little bit of space, some central control. His pieces are a little bit passive. Still not that bad, I guess, but obviously white is better. He has better pawns in the center, more space, and more harmonious coordination. Vallejo plays queen e7, rook ft1, rook ac8. Paco shows his natural intentions to try to break white's pawn center with his c-pawn. And now g3, playing positionally, taking these two squares away from this knight's domination. And now note that this g6 knight doesn't have any square to go that other than going to h8, which doesn't look good at all. So this g3 move is making this piece quite a useless one, and this is going to be one of the keys of the game. This kind of things is very useful to learn from these GMs. I mean, black is playing with a very bad piece right now on g6, and this is something is going to be a key factor in this game. Vallejo plays h6, don't really get that much this move, but okay. Rook ac1, Anand keeps improving his pieces, developing, and c6. And white is now ready to face this c6 break because, well, the way it's going, Viswanathan is going to handle this is very, very instructive. He puts the knight on c4, and after c takes, he takes with the knight. Knight takes on d5, rook takes, and now the knight which was on c4, which was put on c4 a couple of moves ago, is very well placed to attack this bishop on d6 with the rook, so the bishop is under attack. It went to c5, and now rook cd1 with a perfect control of the d file. A very great outpost for the rook in this case on d5. Positionally domination here for white. Definitely this c6 break didn't go that well for black, as Vallejo could have expected. Bishop takes, queen takes, knight takes, sorry, and the knight is joining the positional domination here, having in mind f5 and d5 squares, which would be perfect outpost defended with the pawn. And once again, look at this knight on g6, doing absolutely nothing other than defending the c5 pawn, which is not that much of a big deal here. This knight and this knight are quite different. This huge knight on e3 has lots of very good perspective, while this g6 piece is really useless. It's kind of a donkey, not that much of a knight. Queen to b4, and knight f5, and rook c4. Vallejo tries to be active. He is attacking e4. Knight d6 is defending that pawn. Rook c6, a3, attacking the queen. The queen goes back, goes to b3. Rook to d3, chasing that queen away. Queen b6, and knight goes back to f5. And if we compare this position to the one we had a couple of moves ago, the position is almost the same, but with the difference that black doesn't have that attack on e4 anymore, and the knight still goes to f5, a strong piece, a strong square here. So very, very healthy and very pleasant position here for Anand. Rook to e8, overprotecting e7. Knight is always threatening some checks there, so rook to d7, controlling the 7th rank. Really masterpiece here by Anand, positionally dominating the game. Rook f6 is, I guess, attacking somehow f2. Black is dreaming of some counterplay here someday, and also defending f7 in case. But now white goes on the attack. When you have these good pieces, the open d file under control, the strong knight, and you only have the queen, which lacks the participation, so you get the queen in, And there is the simple plan of white to attack g7 by pushing this h pawn, kicking this knight away, and checkmate black. Obviously not that easy to realize it, but white is focusing all his pieces. All them are coordinated and harmoniously placed, attacking. Queen to c6, h4. And now Vallejo's plan was to, now that he has the queen on c6 attacking e4, he plays h5, deviating white queen, so that after queen takes h5, he can take on e4. So there it went. But this has still some little drawbacks. Obviously, black is attacking f5, but an intermediate move by Anand here is rook to d8, attacking the e8 rook. And okay, needless to say that rook takes d8, not very good looking here, as rook take, check, knight f8 only move, queen e7 is a beautiful checkmate. So the rook here cannot be touched on d8. Queen goes back to c6 to defend the rook on e8. But still, white has almost the same plan as earlier, queen g5. Now it's easier because there is no h pawn of black to stop this h5 advance, so h5 is threatened, winning the piece. Other way, it's a checkmate on g7. So queen goes to e6, attacking f5 once again. But little beautiful move here by Anand, forcing the resignation. Let's see if you can spot it. You can pause the video if you want to. The move Anand played here is rook 1 to d6, attacking the queen and forcing the resignation, as if, say, queen takes f5 for instance, white takes the rook on e8 with check, king to h7. Now after rook takes f6, remember the queen on g5 is still defended. White has taken 2 rooks, black has taken only 1 knight, and all the exchange here are in huge benefit of white. Of course, white is going to have lots of material advantage here. So it was making no sense for the Spaniard to keep playing this position. Obviously, Anand would win it without any effort. So another great victory for the Indian former world champion and current challenger to the world throne, Vishy Anand, looking in great form here in Bilbao after before meeting Carlsen in a couple of months in Sochi.